Welcome to overanalyzing every single chapter of Land of the Lustrous because I am extremely obsessed. Uh, Spoilers for up to 105, and please leave in the comments any observations that I don't make. So we're on volume 3 now. We're slowly making it through the series. Uh, so here we have Antark and Faust because that's mainly what this book is going to be about because it's the volume where the lonely winter, the when they go through the winter and all that, and everything good and fun and lovely happens, and that's why the cover looks so happy. So here we have the full cover, and again, Cinnabar is there. It's interesting because Cinnabar doesn't hibernate in the same room as all the other gems, so I'm not. They probably do just sleep through winter as well. But yeah, but they're in all the cutoffs of the cover that I mentioned before, and it's interesting to see that like Boss is stretching their hand towards the side of where Cinnabar is. But um, yeah, and then there's the Lunarian hands are over here, which I didn't realize. So that's cool, like in the ice. So I just love the red and the again like the composition that Ichikawa is able to do is phenomenal. All right, back to the book. So here it is. Yep, and now we're going on to here, which this is the ruby that they find in the middle of winter, and then here is the character introduction page. Now, what I want to point out here is that first of all, here are the ones that go with the moon. There's Dia, there's Alexandrite, there's Diamond, and they're all kind of close together. Again, Red Barrel kind of ruins this in like every single character introduction. I think I've said that in the last two, where I was like, oh, you can make this connection with like all the characters that go to the moon, except Red Barrel's randomly in here as well. Um, and then who else goes to the moon? And then one of the amethysts goes with Falls to the moon. Yeah. It's interesting that another thing that someone pointed out, I forgot, but Bort and Cinnabar are looking in the opposite directions of most of the character introductions until Cinnabar gets more into the society, and then they're looking the same direction. So that's another thing that can be like gleaned from the character introductions. It's cute here that like I think Foss is trying to copy Antark, like in expression and pose. And then I find it interesting that Antark's the only one who's uh, with this stance, probably just to emphasize like how they're different. Like the book describes it as they're like an only child, or behaves like an only child, like as if they're the only one because they're only like present in the wintertime. Um, let's see. The other things I wanted to say are in the great terrible sense. Yeah, okay. Um, Research maniac, beloved older. So this one says beloved eldest of all the gems, not overly concerned with details. I find that interesting for yellow because in Lunarian society and even in gem society they don't look back on the past a lot, and that's what yellow does to try and like stay sane with how many partners they lost. And so it's interesting. So here it says they're not concerned with any details. This also means that they don't like reflecting. So that's really interesting. I had some more comments on other characters. Um, with Euclid, Euclid says secretary, actually an all-round rounder who can handle any job. This really puts, I really think, so Euclid is basically like the antagonist of Lost Later. I mentioned this in a previous episode of this. Um, this statement here kind of really puts an emphasis on like Euclid's capability, which makes them really different from Foss. In the fact that it says all-around person who can handle any job. In contrast, Foss can't handle a single job. So it's like here it's phrased as a compliment, but it also shows how they foil Foss in a way, and that's pretty cool. Who else? Yes. I think I had more, but I kind of forgot. Congo is still very much with the gems. I find it interesting that Cinnabar is actually in with the gems now, but just because Jade is running towards them. Maybe it's because all of the gems are hibernating except for Foss and Antark. Um, I don't know if there's anything. The Amethysts say that nobody even bothers with who's who anymore, not even them, and so that's like related later on when the Amethysts want to separate in order to become more like individual. I don't know. Let me know if you have any more comments on this page or anything else. Yep. All right, on to the first chapter or of this volume. First battle. Of course, this is Foss's first battle, and that with the amethyst. I don't have too much to say when there's action scenes usually, but here is Foss looking out, and like in the previous chapter, it also talked about how Foss was really exhausted, and I took that as mental exhaustion. So when they get to the point where they flash at Foss's legs and they're like, "Why is Foss not moving?" I think it's really like their mental exhaustion and like their mental state is reflected in them physically, and so it's very interesting. So this is the first time they're seeing a Lunarian that they actually fight, and this just shows how much like they're looking at it, and you see how the amethysts are like, okay, Foss, this is easy. Watch this. And again, like this is the point where like again they don't ask someone to go report. That should be what Foss's job is. But yeah. So then they go and see this is the same thing that Morgan Goshen did. Uh, where they decided to fight the Lunarians instead of going to report. And then Foss reports to them later, but this time Foss doesn't report. Um, who else did this? Foss does this later as well, where they just fight Lunarians and not report to Sensei. It's clear that like they're supposed to report to Sensei before they fight a Lunarian, so it's interesting. So here are the amethysts. They're competent, and again, they emphasize that they're putting Foss in the places where they're least likely for the Lunarians to show up, and the Lunarians show up not because of a probability or anything, but because they specifically want to target Foss, and that's why. So it doesn't even matter trying to put Foss in the least likely spots, because yeah. So this is when they start to realize that it's different, and they're like, Foss, go get Sensei, you know." I really don't have much to comment on their moves. It just shows that like the amethysts are very in sync and fight together, you know. And it shows like the symmetricality of the amethysts, just with uh like this and that, and you know. But, like Foss, go get Sensei. This might be one of those. There's something inside, so you know the abnormal types. And Foss is looking at it, and this is such a like the page turn on this is very cool. Uh, this also shows that like again Foss is lower in the frame again. I mean it's again because Foss is like randomly lying down, but it shows like uh Foss feels a distance from the Amethyst because Foss isn't helping in any way or fighting. Even though they're on the same team as the Amethyst, even though they are finally getting to go into battle as they wanted, they aren't contributing. Like are still feel lower. They're now lower in the frame because of that. Um, and this is such a good shot right here. Like the shadow of the spikes over their face is really good, and it's covering their eyes, which kind of makes it show like how they're kind of blinded or distracted or something. And in contrast, like here, if you see it just right here, Foss is in complete safety compared to them. You know, Foss is the one, and it also shows that they're caged, right? Because it kind of like has that cage effect. Foss is not caged right now. Foss has full autonomy to help, but they are unable to because of their mental strain. You know, uh, the artwork is amazing as always. Um, and again, Foss just stands there looking, uh, showing that Foss isn't very active, that they're just kind of observing. And then this paired with this, it just shows that they first show Foss's face. And I believe it's just to show like the mental fatigue that is contributing to their physical fatigue of not being able to help, not being able to do anything. You know, it's like staying still as out of shock. You know, and I put an emphasis on the previous chapter about how Foss finally gets to do their dream job, but it's not what they expect. This is another thing too. They're starting to realize that it's terrifying. Like this is the first time they're watching their teammates get shattered in front of them, and they're realizing that it's not what they thought. You know, and all they can do is just watch and just sit there because their legs aren't working because they're so strained, and they've never been in a situation like this. You know, so and of course the amethysts are like, "Why are you not?" And then they just scream, and all Foss can do is reach out. And it's interesting because Foss like says when Antar gets taken, if I just reached out my hand like a little bit more, you know, and this is the first time that it happens where they don't do anything and someone gets taken. And when and are not taken, but the only reason they don't get taken is because others step in. And this is like the thing where it's like Foss, because Foss has this thing that someone will always be there to help Foss, is kind of the mentality. And of course, that leads into their thought of being a burden because they're never actively helping, they're only actively causing problems for other people. But the thing is that like it worked out with the Amethyst this time, but it didn't work out for Antark. And Foss, when Antark was going to get taken, Foss was in the same position actually. Like Foss wasn't able to move because of the gold arms, not because of their legs anymore, but because of their arms. And it wasn't only until they realized that there's no one that could help them because it was winter and none of the other gems were out and about, and Congo wasn't with them. It wasn't until Foss realized that the only person who can do anything uh, is them, that they actually tried and get Antark back, but it wouldn't work. They, they were just like here, even so it kind of shows when they don't do anything, this happens. When they do something, this happens. It's just that their mistakes were covered up the first time. And here they reach out their hand, but they can't really do anything. And they same happened when they like went with Antark or something. It's just interesting how that works. And then we have Bort, the fabulous Bort, who comes to save the amethysts, and all of them help collect the pieces. This is Zircon, yeah. And I just like how Bort's design is in the frame. You know, it's just it looks very cool. Um, so here we have Yellow and Bort, and you know Bort is getting head pats because yeah. Foster back. Is that's isn't that Yellow? That's Yellow, right? Yeah, that's Yellow. And then it's interesting that uh, Congo says "you poor thing." I assume that's towards the Lunarian. It could be towards the gems as well, which is right, but he's probably just because he knows why the Lunarians are here and why they're trying to do it, but you know he still can't do anything about it. But he does feel a sense of empathy towards it, I think, or sympathy, you know. So he does that, you know, cool shot. There's the mist. It disperses into mist and it kind of surrounds Congo in mist. Probably just because like how's he able to do that and stuff like that. And again, Foss is just watching, but now Foss is on the opposite side of the panel, and they are just seen like an observer with just with the mist and what's going on, and then it dissipates, and then it's Fort. Now they're lower in the frame again because they just messed up. What were you doing? You know, and because of this mess up now, even though before they were pretty on par with the gems, uh, because of this mess up, they take that guilt and that shame and are now much lower in the frame now. Like, see, the frame is even expanded even bigger to make them even lower in the frame. I was scared. I was so scared I couldn't move. And it just shows that, like, again, Foster's mental state is reflected in them physically. They couldn't move because they were so scared and it wasn't what they were expected, and they were fatigued and tired at the mental process that what they wanted isn't what they wanted, you know? Then we have Rutile and Mucus in the background, fixing the amethysts. And I believe this is probably Red Barrel doing their hair, assumably. Um, but see, again, like the gems are so far up, like you don't even see Foss. Foss is so far down in the frame just because they feel so bad for the paneling. We're sorry. And again, the amethysts apologize. That's why, like, I find it interesting how apologetic the other characters are and how much they pity. I don't know if they pity Foss. I guess they pity Foss in a bit, but they always take it as their burden, as some that it's not Foss's fault, it's their fault. And I think that might make Foss worse. That Foss feels bad that they are being accountable for their actions, and this is what Foss directly says to Antark later. That they're frustrated that nothing came of it. That they weren't berated in any way for it because they believe it's their fault and they're not getting punished for it, and that makes them uneasy just because they expect they should be, but they aren't, and it's making them uneasy that that was the case. We were careless. We were too eager to show you it's done. We were sorry that we put you through that. And again, like it shows that the amethysts are apologetic to Foss, but Foss is the one trying to apologize. Uh, and yeah, and then we have Alex coming in. Hey, Alexandra. I believe this is Alexandra's introduction, right? Because they introduced her earlier in the anime, but this is her like first. Sorry, I'm using her. This is their like first introduction. I'm trying to use gender neutral pronouns, but sometimes I slip up. You say you ran into one of those new Lunarians. Oh, right, that's Alex. Keep it down, Alex. I'm trying to hear people. So yeah, I find it interesting that Alex wants them to call them to like use a to what is it to have them use a nickname with them. I don't know what that says more about their personality. I guess more that they want to be closer to them in that respect, that they use nicknames and stuff like that. In the Japanese, Alex says it's Alex with san, I think is what they say, and Alex wants to use chan, which is like a cuter like uh abbreviation or honorific like sort of thing. Um sure, we're a passionate Lunarian lover. I have to tell you, surface blue. This is me with Houseki no Kuni right here, you know, just like tell me all about it. Well, what did they look like, you know? I heard the surface blades were sapphire. Give me every detail. And it's kind of interesting that uh, Alex here is asking for information and showing that it's something that like is valued to Alex is the information of this. It also appears that we were so close we couldn't. Now, hey, now I wonder. Hey, you know who saw the whole thing? Foss. And so now the amethysts are like, oh wait, even though Foss wasn't helpful during the fight, they're like, oh, Foss can help with telling us what it looks like, you know. But Foss is already gone, um, which is what this is. I feel so bad for Foss. Like that's just the whole series. Feeling bad simulator is what Hoseki no Kuni is. But you know, then Foss runs away. But it's interesting how here, the audience, we see that there is something that Foss could have done to contribute to help, which was to tell Alex about the Lunarians that Foss saw. And Foss becomes super interested in the Lunarians later, so it's kind of interesting that like um, they're like, oh, Foss could definitely help with this, but Foss leaves before they even get there. And I think that they leave without saying anything as like a sign of shame, you know, that they're guilty. They don't want to stay any longer because of the like bad feelings they're facing. That everyone apologizing for their behalf or something like that. And again, like them apologizing actually like, makes Foss feel worse because it really makes Foss feel like a burden. The fact that they have to apologize to Foss for their mess ups. And that just makes Foss feel worse, and that they're not contributing to the society and just causing more problems. Like again, that's why their mental state is. But here we have Foss, and again, like this shows how lonely Foss is, just with how zoomed out it is, because all these characters are like all together. But in the shots with Foss, Foss is alone. Like see, like you know, like there's like three people in the shot. There's Foss alone. There's Foss alone. There's the Amethyst together. There's Foss alone. There's the other characters together. Um, there's all these characters together, and then there's Foss alone. Which is very cool in how they do the paneling and the framing of each scene. So, and then we have Foss saying, "I have to get stronger. I have to be able to stand up and run at any time." And you know, then they meet Cinnabar and all that. But it's interesting that they're actively running away. Their legs can move again because they're mentally scared and want to run from the situation and the feelings that they're having. It's also interesting because it reflects Yellow Diamond too. Because we know that Yellow Diamond ran away. Things it shows that Foss didn't do that because they were so scared at the beginning, but now they're saying they have to get stronger to run away, because they weren't even able to do that then. They weren't even able to do the basic thing that like Yellow does, which is run away. Uh, at any time, I have to be able to stand up. And they're even just talking about standing up. Like they felt so powerless in that moment. Like it shows that even though they have new legs, they still felt so powerless in stand up. And this desire to get stronger is shown as a good thing in this series, at the beginning at least. But it shows like Foss's desire for change and growth and all that, but it's something that's like really detrimental to Foss because they're not able to be content with their current physical state, and that's the reason why they uh, push themselves to progress in such a way is because they aren't content with who they are, and that's where the story kind of ends with the thing is Foss learning to be content. That's why the pebble, like if we go back to the like not back, if we go further all the way back, all the way to the like latest chapters with the pebble, um, the pebble is content with who they are. They said they don't even need legs, they don't need arms, they don't need a mouth. They just want to talk to Foss. They just want to exist, and that contentness is supposed to really contrast Foss, who thought that like who offered them legs and arms and stuff like that so that they can move, and they're like, no, I'm okay with who I am. And like the pebble is even more useless than Foss is at the beginning of the story but Foss is not content with who they are, and so it's this whole journey Foss goes through, just realizing that all they really needed was to just be content with how they were, but they don't, and they continue to change themselves. Anyway, I can. This story is good. Anyway, so then Foss like sees Cinnabar, and Cinnabar is still like alone as well, and you see like the distance between them. Um, and then I wouldn't have anything to say. It's sad that like you can tell that Foss wants to be more connected to Cinnabar and wants to talk to them, but they, I think them like this is Foss like actively separating themselves from people they care about or would like to bond with, which is another problem with Foss and trying to make friends, is that they at this point they're at a really low moment and they put themselves lower than so many people, and they don't see it as okay for them to try and seek help from a friend or to like just talk to like help them make themselves feel better. I think this is like kind of might be showing like them trying to wallow like in their regret and shame because they don't want to reach out and open up to someone else. And you kind of see that with how their face gets lower and lower in the panel. Like, it's here. Kind of it's on par with Cinnabar in the panel, like here, and then it just gets lower and lower. And they see that Cinnabar's head is a lot higher in the panel, I think, because now Foss is really putting Cinnabar above them, where they didn't do that before, like at the beginning of the series, because they're like, oh, Foss is not Foss. Cinnabar is on the same level as me in a little bit, with how they are. But now Foss is really like Foss finally got a job, or they finally got to do the thing I want to do, but they did terribly at it. They messed up, and they are upset about it. Whereas they're looking at Cinnabar, who just has their job and just casually exists, and that's why they feel worse, and they feel like they're not worthy. Again, this is me over analyzing. That's the point of the series, but it could be Foss thinking that they're not like worthy to speak to Cinnabar now, and they also feel like that they aren't. They saying that I wouldn't have anything to say is them being uh saying that they can't talk to them about any of the things that they've gone through. They can't open up about the struggles that they have. It's very sad. And then, of course, winter comes, and then there we have this separation between Foss and Cinnabar again. There's like a clear separation between the grass and the sea, which Foss's hair is like shown to be more grass-like, and Cinnabar is always near the sea. So it's just interesting the like line of separation here with Foss and Cinnabar and the separation between them. And of course, the snow is falling, and then the hibernation will be the next video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a good day. Leave in the comments anything that you analyze that I don't, because I bet I missed something. Let me know if you observe anything differently, have any more insights than I do. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe, and I'll have the next video out eventually. Bye. Thank you.